Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for this Week 8 Zoom edition of Inside the Zone. Justin Kinney is live via internet to talk about what we want to talk about in Week 8. Conference championships coming down the line, and we're going to start with the ACAC because our highlight zone game of the week is Bluffton at Adams Central. A little shine maybe taken off it with the way that Bluffton lost last week to Heritage, but still a lot up for grabs. And Justin, when you take a look at this game, you know, Adams Central has been the team to beat in the ACAC the last 3 years. They're looking to clinch their 4th consecutive conference championship. What can Bluffton do to overcome, being an underdog in this one and come up victorious on the road at the landing strip?
Well, Bluffton's going to have to figure out a way to combat the physicality of Adams Central, because Heritage was so big on Friday that Bluffton just really couldn't get much of anything going in the trenches. And Adams Central handled that big offensive and defensive lines of Heritage when they matched up in week 5. So how does Bluffton find a way, after really being sobered a little bit last week in terms of being demolished up front by Heritage, how do they capture that momentum back? Can they get Axton Best going again after throwing 3 interceptions last week? It's all about a mindset for Bluffton. Put last week out of your mind, the disappointment that was, use that as motivation and take it into Friday night. That's what they're going to need. They're going to have to play their best game of the season by far to have a shot against Adams Central. And Glenn, we talked about this in week 5. Anytime somebody, we feel like maybe is a challenge to Adams Central the last 3 or 4 years, Adams Central just comes out and just has a near perfect game plan and executes and really takes the game out by the time it's in the second half. So does the Flying Jets do that again, or does Bluffton have a surprise up their sleeve? They want to really bounce back after a disappointment last week.
And looking back to last week, I don't think the gap between Bluffton and Heritage is that big. You mentioned, Best having 3 interceptions. That's uncharacteristic of what we saw. It was kind of just everything that could go wrong went wrong for Bluffton. Credit to Heritage for helping make things go wrong. But I don't believe it's that huge of a gap between those two teams. And on the flip side, we talk so much about the running game and Adams Central. Defensively, they're only giving up 7.8 points per game this year. That is top 10 in the state, regardless of classification. What is it about that defense that really sets the tone for Adams Central? Obviously, they run the ball, so they do, keep the clock moving and don't give the other teams a lot of opportunities. But what is it about the defense, Max Carr and all those guys that make the defense so effective week in and week out for AC?
Well, first off, you bring up a good point about Heritage and Bluffton, because I think last week we saw the difference between a veteran team with a senior-laden group on both sides of the football and then a Bluffton team that you feel like maybe is a year away, playing just a couple seniors. And that was the difference, I thought, last week. But then going into this game, how does that youth mature in a week's time to be able to move the ball against a defense that's been incredibly stingy? And as always, it always starts up front. I mean, Cameron Fravel has been phenomenal on both sides of the football. A younger kid. There's some seniors in there, but this is another Adams Central team that, in terms of youth, have a lot in a lot of key positions. So does that kind of maybe level the playing field a little bit? I don't know, because we saw Adams Central handle a senior-laden Heritage team in week 5, but it's all going to be, I think, and not to put a lot of pressure on a sophomore, but Axton Best. How does he bounce back? I think Bluffton has to be able to execute vertically in this game. They can't count on Cooper Craig and move into chains and run for 150 yards against Adams Central. It has to be vertically for this team to score enough points to have a shot to knock off the Flying Jets.
Yeah, and we've seen, when the Jets have gone in the state championship game, the only time they've really been exposed maybe defensively is with the passing game. So anybody that, they don't see a lot of throwing teams in the ACAC week in and week out, but that's been kind of the bugaboo. And obviously Indianapolis Lutheran has done it at a really high level. But yeah, that's been the fly in the ointment, if you will, is the ability to stop that air attack in years past. Let's move on to the SAC. And we were talking about this before the show. clear things up with me about how they are doing things. It's even different than they did it last year in terms of determining a champion in the SAC this season.
Yeah, okay. This week, it seems like it changes weekly. What I've been told is it is just a 7 game. Well, whoever has the best record after 7 conference games is your league champion, regardless of big division, small division. So right now, having an undefeated 5-0 record in the league, Carroll is in first. In second is both Snyder and Bishop Luers at 4-1 each. They need help. But if Snyder needs a lot of help because they're effectively 2 games behind because they lost to Carroll. The team that is within striking distance, 1 game back is Bishop Luers. If they can win out, they have a big one against Homestead coming up in week 9, the game they lost last year. If they can get help by somebody knocking off Carroll in the final 2 weeks, then they can share. But because they don't have a head-to-head. But yeah, as soon as we seem to have figured out what is going on in the SAC, we're told different information. I just wish this was clear from the jump. I don't know. It's like we're in the dark trying to figure this out. You talk to somebody, you get this information. You talk to somebody else, you get that information. So as of today, that's how we know the SAC is decided. But it could change.
Yep. And obviously there have been major changes to the SAC. You know, we didn't have the divisions 2 years ago. Last year, it was only the games in your division that counted towards the title. This year, as you said, the change has been made to have all games count equally in the SAC, whether it's a big division against a small division game. It all counts when it comes to the SAC Conference Championship. If you're Carroll, you got Northrop at home this week. Carroll will go in as a favorite for that one, obviously. What are they doing right now that's been impressive to you that makes them the team to beat? Throwing out the record, obviously, but what makes them the team to beat in the SAC right now?
Well, I think offensively, they're as adept of an offense as we have in the SAC. And, you look around the league and you just see a bunch of teams. It's not that Carroll has a dynamic offense. It's just better than everybody else's. I mean, you look at Snyder and they've had their moments, but it's kind of a one-dimensional offense. And maybe last week gets Aaron Vance going at quarterback. You look at Bishop Dwenger, a lot of firepower. You look at Bishop Luers. They're still trying to find a quarterback alternate between 2 juniors. Homestead, they show signs. And then Michael White goes down last week. And it's kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back with Homestead. It's really the lone offense in the SAC that has consistently fired on all cylinders is Carroll. And it's benefited them. Jimmy Sullivan playing some of the best football he has as a star in the prep ranks. We mentioned it last week about when do we see that sophomore year Jimmy Sullivan, that this team rode to a 6A championship appearance. So we kind of saw that last week, right? Throwing for over 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. If that can continue, then Carroll's going to wrap this SAC up. And who knows once they get into 6A. So I think that's really been the difference is that offense, because it is clear cut the best offense in the SAC.
Yeah, and when you look at moving on from the Carroll Northrop game this week, the other game that grabs my eye would be Bishop Dwenger at Snyder this week. This is going to feel a little bit like a playoff game, and both teams have a few things to work on before they get to the postseason. Dwenger only scored 8 points last week, 2 field goals and a safety, but they still won because their defense pitched a shutout. So finding a way to win, there's always something positive you can take from that. But how much do they have to get the offense humming to get ready if they want to make a run at a sectional championship and beyond in a game like this where they're going to face a Snyder defense that's going to be like a really good 4A defense plus this coming Friday night?
Yeah, it's tough with Bishop Dwenger because what we saw last week is they were able to play ball control and keep away, and really the defense led the way in the battle with the Bishops against Bishop Luers. You look at the quarterback position. Is Henry Jordan going to be able to get back healthy this season? He leaves the game last week. It's uncertainty there behind center for Bishop Dwenger, and that's kind of everything because Henry Jordan has kind of been that leader heading into this season. So as you have to make a quarterback switch, where's the weapons on the outside? You've seen signs from guys like Beckham Russell and players like that. Consistently, can they get those guys the ball? And then, the running game too. Can it be effective against that really, really physical Snyder defense? So I guess the key thing is for me is, can Bishop Dwenger score enough in this game? And I think it's open to question. If Snyder can play a clean game, not turn the ball over, minimize mistakes, it's going to be very difficult for Dwenger to score enough points to beat the Panthers.
Speaking of scoring points, East Noble, as we transition to the NE8, how impressive a performance was that in the first half last week to lead 35-0 against a previously undefeated Columbia City team? Obviously, East Noble is the team to beat in the NE8. They've got 2 games left in the regular season, New Haven and Belmont in the next 2 weeks. What can you say about the performance that we've seen from East Noble, knowing that here they are now, the team to beat in the NE8, and they've done it with a new head coach. They've done it with a new quarterback. They've done it with new guys stepping into bigger roles. What can you say about what you've seen from the Knights so far this season as we enter week 8?
It's been very impressive, because usually 9 times out of 10, when a coach leaves, he leaves the program in a bad place, or it's a down play. It needs a rebuild, right? But Luke Amstutz, not only does he step down from what is a very impressive program that he's built, he's also still in the building. So Coach Alex Stewart can just go down the hall and ask, Luke Amstutz this question and that question. So it's been very seamless going from Coach Amstutz to Coach Stewart. And he came in and said, I'm going to bring some principles with me, but we're not going to change everything. We're not going to go crazy here. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, maybe add a wrinkle here or there. And it's been seamless in terms of the transition. And we see a very, very talented group, maybe not laden with stars, but, Dylan Krell and Riley Biddle and guys like this, and Logan Hatton, that have been very, very good. And I give credit to Riley Biddle this past week, especially. He was a kid that, we still hadn't seen that breakout game yet from him at quarterback. And it came in a huge game, throwing for over 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had only thrown 5 touchdowns the previous 6 weeks. And then conversely, that defense really rattling Grayson Bradbury behind center, forcing 3 picks. And that was huge too. So it seems like with every challenge, East Noble's been able to really rise to the occasion. And that's a testament to the previous regime and also the current regime, Coach Amstutz and Coach Stewart.
Yeah, that defensive backfield for East Noble, I believe they had 3 picks in the Leo game, including the 91-yarder for a touchdown, and then 3 picks against Columbia City. In the biggest games, they're averaging 3 picks. That is it makes it a lot easier to win when your defense has 3 picks against really, really good offenses. The big game in the NE8 this week is Leo at Columbia City, ostensibly for second place, if you will, in the Northeast 8. Obviously, both these teams want to get right for a postseason run. Columbia City, especially coming off last week. How do you see this one playing out? Because you're talking about there's some dynamic players on both sides of the game, but on both offenses for both Columbia City and for Leo.
Well, I think this is a big week for Columbia City, because they got it handed to them last Friday, and they could potentially see East Noble in the playoffs. They could potentially see Leo in the playoffs, now that all 3 of those are in the same 4A sectional 19. So I think it's a big bounce back week for Columbia City. If they want to really have momentum going into the postseason, they'll have Norwell week 9, and then they go into the postseason, and it's a very, very competitive sectional 19. Even if they don't win on Friday, just a good performance. Make this game close and kind of maybe get some confidence after really being humbled last Friday. And then conversely with Leo, you're kind of waiting for the postseason to really kind of judge Leo. They take the loss against East Noble, right? But since then, they've just been pretty business as usual. So I think they're slowly building towards what they want to do. It's cliche, but they want to be playing their best football in late October, right? That's what everybody says. And that's kind of what they're building towards. They're not, unless they get help, not going to achieve their goal of a sectional or a conference championship, but a bigger hardware awaits if they can put it together for the playoffs.
Speaking of conference championships, we're going to talk the NECC. Churubusco clinched the small division title last week. That after a 2-8 season last year. They've been really solid this season in the small division. And then you've got Angola at Garrett this week. If Garrett wins, they clinch the NECC big division. What can you say about what we've seen in the NECC this year, starting with Churubusco?
It always feels good when Churubusco is good, isn't it? It's kind of like the old adage, oh, college football isn't the same unless Notre Dame's good. It's like, Northeast Indiana football is not the same unless Cherubusco is good. And that's been pretty cool to see because the last couple of years have kind of been a struggle. Even before this season started, we'd heard talk about numbers were down in Busco, and then they start off 0-3, all three lopsided losses against good competition. But you're like, here we go again. And then they've turned it around and really been great since. And, Paul Sade's a great guy, great coach. It's just cool to see that community have a winner. And because it's always fun when Cherubusco's winning. And then the same exact thing you could say for Garrett. I mean, for them to really have the season, maybe we expected a little bit more with the Railroaders this year after signs we saw last year, but just the dominance we've seen, particularly handling West Noble and the way they did, particularly defensively, was really cool. And we talk about rematches in the postseason with any 8 teams. We could see it again with Garrett and West Noble. So congratulations to both of those teams. Garrett's going to try to win it outright. Hawk Hasselman, the leader, of course, with Angola. And they got a big win on Saturday night last week. So we'll see if Garrett can wrap it up and have a lone championship of the big division because they definitely deserve it.
I thought we were going to get a Hawk Hasselman. Reference.
Got to work it in, man.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, it's not in the NECC, but Brock Rohrbacher and Woodland, you look at the last 3 weeks, they've won 113-13 is the tally. And I know people say, well, those are teams that Woodland should beat, but this is high school football with 14 to 18-year-olds. Like, that doesn't always happen. Right. It's hard to predict. So it's kind of nice, again, to see Woodland up there with Brock Rohrbacher, a guy who's been around Northeast Indiana for some football for quite many years. Well known, especially in the East Allen County school system.
Definitely. And Brock has been vocal about saying this is a formative year. And, we want to win, obviously, but, he's really mixing in a lot of youth where he can. I mean, he's using the Fleet Cousins really as kind of, setting the tone for this group. But he's really looking forward. But for the experience that they're getting this year, and experience and wins is a great combination. So he's laying that foundation, all the old sayings that coaches will say in year one. But I think it's a team that we kind of look at and say maybe a little bit better than we thought they would be. We'll see how they close out the regular season and into the playoffs. But yeah, I think Woodland is a team to watch going forward in the next couple of years. I think Brock Rohrbacher is doing a great job. And, I think right now you got to look at them as a pretty tough out. Whoever draws them in sectional better be ready to play.
Especially on the road at Etzler Field. You mentioned looking ahead to the games in week 8. What are you most looking forward to? I mean, we got 2 weeks before the playoffs begin. So obviously, as the whole show has been about conference championships, who can clinch and who can do what. So obviously that's a big topic, but what are you really honing in on and focusing in and seeing around Northeast Indiana as you get ready to see postseason matchups here really quickly? The draw's Sunday.
Right, exactly. No, I think we talked a lot about the teams that are going to clinch or have clinched to share, but plenty of others are now looking at themselves and saying, we have 2 weeks to get right. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams, whether it's trying guys in different positions, whether it's moving some things around, maybe different wrinkles in their offense or defensive schemes, they're going to use the next 2 weeks to try to make sure that they're as ready as possible for the postseason. So for every Snyder and Garrett and Cherubusco we talk about, we have plenty of other teams that are saying, well, we're not winning the conference. We got to focus. And especially come Sunday, as you mentioned, with the draw where you'll know exactly who and where you play, but now just 2 games left to be ready to go when it's win or go home.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think some of the East Sides who've gotten healthy with Lincoln Carter, or like a South Adams, you look at 1A and you say, man, in the area, it's wide open. And we got a quarterback, we got a receiver. Like, we have some pieces, Ramirez, like there's a few teams out there, like you said, that may not be in the conference hunt anymore, but man, they could have a road to make a nice little postseason run here, and that is something we should definitely watch over the next couple of weeks. For Justin, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next week right here on Inside the Zone. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you want to Zoom? Would you be able to Zoom next Sunday night as opposed to Monday? That way we could do post